Welcome to my channel. My name is Adina. I'm an intuitive astrologer. In this video, we will be getting into the energy of the lunar nodes transiting through Virgo and Pisces. This is my first video in like 6 months. I want to thank you all for sticking with me, and this will actually be the first of many for my comeback. I will be back with my weekly forecasts, my new moon and full moon videos, and much, much more. So let's get right into this presentation. For the first portion of the presentation, we will get into the general energies. And then for the second portion of the presentation, we will get into all 12 rising signs. So you're able to see how this energy is showing up for you personally. Now, when we are talking about the lunar nodes, we're talking about fate, karma, and destiny. The lunar nodes entered Virgo and Pisces January 11th, 2025, and will remain in Virgo and Pisces until July 26th, 2026. Now, when we are talking about the lunar nodes, the lunar nodes are not actual planets or bodies in the sky. They're points in the sky. They're astrological points, so they're not like bodies like planets, and they represent where we're having the eclipses. They primarily work with the sun and the moon. The north node represents a new fated direction that we are meant to move into, and the south node represents past lives, experiences, habits, and what is known either through past life experiences or experiences just from this lifetime. And we're kind of meant to integrate these energies. We don't want to fully move out of our south node into the north node, but we do want to move into the north node energies. In our birth chart, this represents, if you look in your birth chart where the nodes lie, this will show you part of your life purpose and direction in this lifetime. Now, as the nodes transit the zodiac and move through our birth chart, it shifts and changes and brings upheaval in these areas of life, a fated karmic upheaval. Now, the nodes take about 18 months to transit a sign. So, this is really an 18-month story playing out. And what I want you to remember is that whenever the nodes have an activation or whenever we have an eclipse, this is new energy, experiences, and situations coming in to play out with this 18-month story. So just remember that and keep that kind of in the back of your head that we are now beginning a brand new 18-month journey. So let's get into the Virgo energies. So Virgo is a mutable earth sign ruled by Mercury. So this is quite different. We just had the South Node in the nodes in Aries and Libra. And this is interesting because Mercury is the fastest moving planet. So we'll get into this energy, but this means that there's going to be a lot of quick changes taking place over the next 18 months. Now, Virgo rules on things like nutrition, health habits, your diet, any health concerns kind of is with Virgo. Virgo also rules beauty, how you put yourself together, where Libra is kind of that beauty, harmony, tranquility. And Virgo is more beauty and how you put your makeup on, how you make it work. Virgo also rules organization, your schedule, your daily routine, and work. Not necessarily your career, but the labor that you put into your work, how you make it work. Virgo also rules practicality. Virgo is very analytical, detail oriented, and sometimes Virgo can have, a lot of times Virgo has this need to control, almost not like to be, controlling, but it's almost like this energy of fear. If I don't control, this is going to fall to pieces. And that's very much Virgo energy. Now, Pisces is a mutable water sign ruled by Neptune and Jupiter. So, modernly ruled by Neptune, traditionally ruled by Jupiter. So, now we want to pay attention to Jupiter and Neptune when we are looking at the North Node, where the last 18 months it was Mars because we had the North Node in Aries. So this is really changing the energy up. Now, Pisces rules things like spirituality, karma, past lives, can rule things like self-undoing and self-sabotaging tendencies, habits, and behaviors, addictions. It's a very karmic energy and can rule past life patterns, creativity, imagination, dreams. It's very illusionary. It's very intuitive and emotional. Pisces is also the sign that is boundaryless. So there is no boundaries with Pisces. So one thing that may come up over the next 18 months is boundaries. Pisces is also the last sign of the zodiac. So it rules endings and completions. Now, when we talk about the North Node in Pisces, what can this bring? This can bring a new spiritual journey, a spiritual awakening, spiritual growth, a new direction towards your life purpose. It can bring on a healing journey of some kind. And because Pisces rules things like addictions and drugs and alcohol, we may see a lot around those themes and topics in the collective over the next 18 months. Now, because Pisces rules things like self-undoing behaviors and patterns, that's also a thing that you may go through individually, becoming aware of these behaviors and tendencies and having and changing them in some way. There can be experiences or situations arising for you to become aware of these patterns so that you can change. And like I kind of mentioned in the previous slide, boundaries, having to create new boundaries with yourself and with others. And because Pisces is such a compassionate energy, we may have to learn to forgive ourselves and others, not be so self-critical on ourselves. That's another kind of Virgo energy where we're, releasing and kind of moving out of this Virgo energy into this Pisces energy, learning to let go and trust the universe, not having this need to control everything. And the North Node, I also just want to mention that it can seem, there can be fear around the North Node because it's unknown territory. It's something new. It's a new journey, new experience that we are meant to move through in this lifetime. And so whatever does arise for you over the next 18 months, we're going to have to get uncomfortable. I heard a saying one time where dreams, the comfort zone is where dreams go to die. And I thought that was really interesting because in order to grow, you have to kind of get uncomfortable, right? So the Virgo South Node energies can show up as, and remember, because the South Node represents something that we need to release, let go of, and kind of move out of in some way. There can be, the need to control because Virgo, like I mentioned before, is a very controlling energy. So there might be experiences and situations showing up where you're going to have to learn to let go, trust the universe. I think we're all going to have to kind of move through that in our own way. We will all have our own experiences showing up over the next 18 months, but part of that is going to be, learning to let go of control and controlling the outcome and just trusting the universe that really is, this integrating the energies between a Virgo and Pisces. Shifting from overthinking to just trusting, because Virgo can be a very analytical energy and an overthinker. I'm Virgo rising, so I get it. We can, overthink a lot of things, and we're going to have to slow that mind down over the next 18 months. And I think this is going to be a lot. I think this is going to be good for a lot of us Virgo people. And in a way, I guess it depends on how open you are. Letting go of perfectionism, because again, Virgo can be a sign that, everything kind of has to be a certain way. Also changes to daily routines, acts of service. Because Virgo also represents things like service to others. And so, collectively, we may see changes with our healthcare system. I think I think we're going to see a lot of changes with like medicine, healthcare. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but I think we will see a lot of changes in the collective with that. And being overly critical and judgmental of other people and ourselves, I think will be something that we will become very aware of and have to, kind of balance that out and learn to have compassion with ourselves and with others. And also, create a balance between service to others and personal needs. So, in areas of our life where maybe we're giving too much of ourselves away or helping others too much. And again, that kind of is tied in with boundaries. This can be something that really shows up over the next 18 months where you become aware of areas of your life where maybe you are, giving too much of yourself away or helping others and not kind of focusing on you. Not that you're supposed to be selfish or anything like that, but we can become depleted when we give too much of our energy away. So, boundaries is going to be a really big thing over the next 18 months. So now let's look at the eclipse dates. So the eclipses that we have taking place in 2025, on March 14th, we will have our first lunar eclipse in Virgo. March 29th, we will close out the energies and the story that's been playing out since July of 2023 with the nodes in Aries and Libra. This is the end of that chapter. So this would be a really good time to kind of reflect on, those areas of life and what are the changes that have taken place in the Aries and Libra axis of your chart and, the themes and topics and all that. Like, what's the story that's played out? What changes have taken place? I'd love to hear in the comments below. So March 29th will be our final solar eclipse in Aries, kind of closing out that saga. September 7th, we will have our lunar eclipse in Pisces. September 21st, we will have a solar eclipse in Virgo. And then once we get into 2026, we are already getting into the next saga of Leo and Aquarius. February 17th, we will have the solar eclipse in Aquarius. March 3rd, we will have another lunar eclipse in Virgo. August 12th, we will have our first solar eclipse in Leo. And then August 28th, we will have our final lunar eclipse in Pisces. All right, so let's get into the first chart that I want to go over here. And I also want you guys to know that the reversal to this. So when we had the North Node in Virgo and the South Node in Pisces, that was November 11th, 2015 to May 9th, 2017. So keep those dates in mind and also think back to that time period. What was showing up for you? This is going to be the reversal to that energy. The last time we had the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo, what we have now was June 22nd of 2006 to December 14th, 2007. So if you think back to that time period, 2006, 2007, what was showing up for you? Because that can really give you an idea of common themes and energies you'll be moving through now. Okay, so February 1st and 2nd, we have kind of what I feel like is our first major activation of the nodes because we have this conjunction here with Venus and Neptune. And remember, Neptune rules Pisces. So this is very potent energy. Not only is the North Node in Pisces, but then we have this conjunction with Neptune, enhancing that and amplifying the Pisces themes and topics and energy. Also keep in mind too that Venus is going to be stationing retrograde March 1st. I will be making a separate video going into the Venus retrograde energies, but January 27th, Venus enters pre-shadow. So whatever Venus is doing from, January 27th to March 1st, we will be coming back to those themes, topics, and energy. So with this conjunction, you want to pay attention to what is showing up for you. coming right into February, Venus rules things like relationships, self-love, self-worth, money, finances. So, those themes and topics are going to be front and center over the next few months. There's going to be a lot of reassessing and reevaluating those themes and topics. Now, generally, Venus is exalted in Pisces. So Venus does very well in Pisces. She loves being in Pisces. This is a very romantic, passionate energy. But we do have Saturn here, which is kind of toning things down a little bit. But definitely pay attention, February 1st and 2nd to what is showing up. This is what I feel like is our first major activation to the story that's playing out over the next 18 months. So this is, these days, this time period is really going to give you an idea of, I feel like, kind of what the nodes are going to bring in for you. Now, in the second chart, this is our lunar eclipse that we're having in Virgo March 14th. Now, I'm not going over all the eclipses because I will be posting separate videos on those, but I did just want to kind of go over the first lunar eclipse in Virgo. So this one will be at 23 degrees in Virgo, and this is with the sun conjunct Saturn. And this can really bring in, and this is already after Venus stations retrograde too. And then we're going to have a Mercury retrograde. So we will have Venus and Mercury retrograde kind of at the same time from Aries to Pisces. Um, but Mercury being the ruler of Virgo in Aries, the good thing is at this point, will be stationed direct, but Mars is still in Cancer. So this can be a very emotional energy, emotional and mental energy. And this is where there can really be something coming to the forefront where you're having to um, kind of get a better understanding on how to process emotions. There can be something showing up where you're having, it's almost like there's going to be something new coming in and a new way to process emotions, if that makes sense. Now, we pretty much have this moon in Virgo opposing Saturn with the sun conjunct Saturn. So there definitely can be some type of restriction or delay at this time in this area of life, and kind of keep these dates in mind when we go through all 12 rising signs. But however this is showing up for you and whatever themes and topics this energy is working with, there can be delays in this area of life or restriction in some ways. There can be a stop or a hold to something because of this Saturn energy. Also, Neptune enters Aries March 30th. That is really going to change the energy. Excuse me. And we want to keep that in mind because Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, also Jupiter, but Neptune. And when Neptune shifts into Aries, that's going to be a huge energy shift. And I'll be making a separate video going into Neptune and Aries energies. But we're moving from Pisces to Aries. That's a huge shift. Very, very different energy. This, emotional, intuitive, kind of boundaryless energy to Aries, which is very go, 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 wanting to kind of move forward, ruled by Mars. So yeah, it's a very different energy. But because we still have Mars in Cancer, it's still like there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of kind of emotions I feel like coming to the surface, and a lot of relationship energy too, with this Venus retrograde and stuff like a lot around relationships and how you connect in relationships, karmic relationships, and self-love, self-worth, and what you need, want, and desire, and how you want to be loved and how you want to love others. Like that's kind of a lot of the themes that we're going to be moving through over the next few months. Now, on this next slide, April 2nd, we have this huge Pisces conjunction, which is really interesting. And again, if you think back to when Venus was in Pisces, February, January, February, when Venus formed the conjunction to Saturn, which will be January 17th and 18th. Those are all energies and themes and topics we will be coming back to. So there's something, that showed up January, February, now, at the time of me recording this video, that we will be reassessing and rethinking and reevaluating with this Venus retrograde. And it's very karmic, it's very fated because the North Node is involved. I mean, there's a huge conjunction here with Saturn, Venus, North Node, and Mercury. Mercury, Venus, both retrograde. Mercury being the ruler of the South Node. So there can definitely be something showing up at this time where you're becoming aware of something or someone that you need to let go of. It can be karmic patterns within relationships. It's a lot of karmic energy, but it's where I feel like, however this is showing up, it's something being presented that you become aware of needs to be changed in some way, whether you have to let go or yeah, let go in order to move into a new direction. And that's kind of very really what I'm feeling with this um energy. And because Saturn is involved, there can be, and also too, we've got this sextile from Uranus, so there's definitely can be a bit of a shakeup. But it's a positive. It's a positive. It's almost like an unexpected opportunity coming in for change in some way. And it can not just have to do with relationships. It could have to do with finances. Maybe something showing up with your money or, your finances or something along those lines that you're having to address. And because Saturn is here, there could be delays. It may not be moving as fast as you want, or, we're talking about Saturn energy. Saturn just takes time. It's all about time with Saturn. But this is a huge Pisces conjunction. So this area of your chart is going to be lit up and very active. Now, on May 18th, we're going to have a Jupiter T square. Um, and this is interesting because Jupiter is the ruler, the co-ruler of that North Node, in Pisces. And in Gemini, which which rules things like communication, your mind, mindset, um, news, information, messages. So there can be something along those lines where maybe there's a shift in your mindset or you're becoming aware of what needs to kind of change mentally in order to embark on this new karmic direction because it's a T square. So a T square is bringing in attention. It's tension. It's something um, it's like something needs to be changed and it's at a standstill until the change takes place. Like a T square is just a very kind of difficult energy as far as, tension or a hold, a stop. It's not moving forward kind of until we figure out what needs to be released and let go of in this area. In order to move forward. And there is something that can present itself at this time where you are becoming aware of what needs to be released or let go of or changed in some way. And again, it could have to do with because Jupiter is in Gemini and the South Node's in Virgo, it very much can have to do with, mentality or your mindset in some way. Or even, having a conversation with someone and being presented with information where you then are like, okay, now I know I have to, do this or move in this direction. At this point, Mercury will be in Taurus. So this can have to do with like your mindset around feeling stability or needing stability in a certain area of life too, because Taurus does have to do with those energies, your values, stability, comfort, what you need to feel secure. So those themes and topics can also be presented at this time as well, and what needs to be changed in order to get you there. But either way, this is, um, kind of a crisis point to this journey that will be playing out in the Pisces Virgo axis. So, whatever new karmic journey you're moving into, this will be a time period where something does, show up or present itself, and you're having to make a shift in some way. Now, on July 20th, we're going to have Mars form a conjunction to the South Node in Virgo. And at this point, we will have Mercury retrograde in Leo. And the one of the reasons why I feel like this energy is so significant is because Mars will be ruling this new energy here in Aries. Saturn retrograde and Neptune retrograde, which is a very new energy. So, and Mars forming a conjunction to the South Node indicates that there can be something presented at this time around your daily routine, your mindset, your health, or the need to control all those Virgo energies that needs to be released and let go of. And it's like also too, there's very much this drive to move forward with something or make these changes. But because Saturn and Neptune are retrograde in Aries, um, it's shifting things a little. It's like there can be, I don't even want to say like delays or restriction, but there's definitely something changing. And then also too, because at this point we have the nodes forming a T square to Venus in Gemini, and both this energy here and the Virgo energy is being ruled by this Mercury retrograde in Leo. So this very much can have to do with relationships too, and boundaries and mindset around relationships. There could be a lot around relationships showing up at this time, possibly. And again, it's a T square, so it can be tension. And we'll get into this energy obviously when we get closer to this date and we kind of see themes and topics that have already presented itself. We might know a little bit better. But with this Venus and Gemini, it can have to do with a lot of ideas around relationships. It can have to do with self-love and self-worth, your mindset around that. We're also going to have, Uranus and Gemini, which is another new energy we will be experiencing. So 2025 is full of change and newness. There's a lot of new energy coming in 2025 because we have all of the outer planets shifting signs. So we don't actually have Saturn and Neptune staying in Aries, but this is the first year where we get a taste of what the Saturn and Neptune and Aries energy is going to feel like. And same with the Uranus and Gemini. And I'm probably going to make a separate video going into this, the 2025 energies. But yeah, we're in for a lot of change. And 2025 is when we really get to see the first kind of sneak peek to that. To what that change is going to be, and having Uranus shifting into Gemini and even having Uranus in Gemini at this time, that's going to change the energy up. And Gemini, ruling things like communication and news and media, collectively, this can have something to do with that. There could be a lot on the news at this time, especially with Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, and then with that Mars conjunction to the South Node. This can be, Mars ruling things like anger, aggression, and conflict. There can be a lot of conflict on the planet at this time that we're seeing. So these are things we really do want to kind of be mindful of and aware of. Now on an individual level, this can have to do with because Mercury is kind of retrograde in Leo, rethinking and reevaluating and reassessing, what you need to feel happy in a sense, what you need to feel fulfilled in life. this can have a lot to do with that, that changing. And again, that also kind of falls in line with the Virgo Pisces energies, where there can be a lot presented and changing, where maybe you're just wanting to, again, it's kind of like letting go the need to control, but just trusting more. There could be something kind of showing up at this point where this can be one of the situations or experiences that shows up, kind of showing us that we have to let go of the need to control and trust the universe because we don't have a choice. This is where, one of those situations could present itself. This is also when we could see something with our healthcare system, because I did mention um, the like changes to our healthcare system, pharmaceuticals, things like that. This is where we could hear a lot of information coming out about those changes, or a lot of it just information in general. And this can also have to do with finances, hearing something about finances at this time, or the banking system, with this Venus and Gemini. Well, those are pretty much all of the kind of energies that I wanted to touch on just in this forecast, just to give you guys a heads up of what's coming. I will, of course, touch on these energies as we get closer to the dates. So, thank you so much for joining me. Also, I hope you all did watch the first portion of this video because it does bring more context once we get into all 12 rising signs. But now let's get into all 12 rising signs. Aries, you have the lunar nodes transiting your sixth house and your 12th house, and you have gone through a lot of changes the last year and a half to 2 years when it has to do with you and your relationships, because you just had the north node transiting your first house and the south node transiting your seventh. So, where the last year and a half to 2 years you had all of this energy, you were ready to go, now the north node is in your 12th house of isolation, things and places that are hidden. So, hospitals, asylums, retreat centers. Energy also gets suppressed in the 12th house. So, some things you're going to have to really watch for having the North Node transiting your 12th house is escapism, illusion, delusion, deception, anything where you can get in your own way, because the 12th house also rules self-sabotage, self-undoing. So the best direction to lean into with the North Node transiting your 12th house is your spiritual path, because that 12th house does rule spirituality and karma. And in order to not fall down the other path of self-undoing and escapism, we really want to make sure that we are following what is in alignment with us. Now, having the South Node in the sixth house may mean that you have to change your daily routine in some way, or maybe your health habits, because that is what the themes and topics associated with the sixth house. And with that south node, the south node represents something that you will be letting go of or releasing. There could be a lot of changes to your health. There could be a lot of changes to your day-to-day work habits or daily routine at home in some way, maybe even pets, because pets also reside in the sixth house. So I think you're probably one of the signs that's going to feel this shift the most, just because you just finished having the North Node in your first house and now it's in your 12th, which is such a significant energy shift. So, for all my Aries out there, I would love to hear, how you are kind of feeling this in the comments down below. But, these are the houses that are going to be activated. And remember, if you watch the first half of this forecast, I talked about, when the nodes transit a sign, it's really like an 18-month story playing out. And so every time we have, an activation of the nodes or any significant degree point in those houses or signs, or an eclipse, that's more energy to the story that is playing out over the next 18 months, because the nodes will be in Virgo and Pisces from January 11th, 2025 to July 26th, 2026. Now, the first time we really get a significant activation in this Pisces energy is the end of the month when we have, the huge conjunction, which if you watched the beginning of this forecast, you would have heard me discuss that conjunction. So if you haven't, go back and watch that, because that's when we get our first, kind of big activation where I feel like it's going to show us some of the themes and topics that we will be navigating over the next 18 months. Taurus, you have the lunar nodes transiting your fifth house and your 11th house. So, your fifth house rules children, what you do for fun, your hobbies, your interests, what you're passionate about. Um, any creative pursuits that maybe you have going on. And the 11th house has to do with friends and friendships, your social groups, any groups or associations that you are connected to. Even kind of social media, I find, is in the 11th house as well. And your hopes and dreams. And so these themes and topics are what's being lit up over the next 18 months. This is where you are going to have a lot of significant changes. And so the North Node represents something new, something karmic, a new direction that you will be kind of moving into. And the South Node represents a releasing or a letting go of something. So there may be, a releasing or letting go or changes with your children, or even with romantic connections, because romance is in the fifth house as well, or maybe creative ventures you've been doing or creative projects, changing, what you find interesting and what you used to find pleasure in. And the 11th house, having the North Node in the 11th house can bring a lot of karmic friendships back into your life, new friends that maybe you feel like you've known in past lifetimes or even from childhood, or maybe you are starting a new group or getting connected to a new group. But either way, that there is an 18-month story playing out. If you watch the first half of this forecast where I go over all of the kind of activations taking place, we have our first, I think, significant activation in Pisces, the end of January, the beginning of February. So if you didn't watch the beginning of this forecast, go back and watch that because it brings more context to kind of what I'm talking about now with these energies. But these are the themes and topics and houses that are going to be, kind of lit up and going through changes over the next 18 months. Gemini, you have the North Node transiting your 10th house and the South Node transiting your 4th house. So this means that you will be going through a lot of changes in these areas of life, the themes and topics associated with with these houses. So the South Node represents releasing or letting go of something. There's something that you're kind of moving away from in this area of life. And the 4th house rules home and family, property, real estate. The North Node represents something new. It's a new direction that you are moving into. And remember, the nodes are very karmic. And so one thing you want to remember is that this is an 18-month story playing out. And so if you watch the first portion of this forecast where I go into some of the major activations that will be taking place, every time we have an eclipse or a major activation of the nodes, that's bringing more energy in for the 18-month story that will be playing out while the nodes are transiting this area of your chart. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. I think we get the first kind of insight into what the themes and topics are going to be at the end of February, end of January, beginning of February, when we have the big Pisces conjunction. But the 10th house rules your career. So there's going to be a lot of changes with your career, with your public image, with how you want to be known out in the world. And these are things that will be changing. Your private life and your public life. There's going to be a lot of changes here. Whether maybe you used to work from home and now you're going to be, kind of out in the world working or, in an office or, whatever the case is. But because the South Node is in that 4th house of home and family and property and kind of that private area, and it represents a releasing or a letting go or a moving away from. There is something that you are moving away from in this area and moving into in the career sector of your chart. Cancer, you have the lunar nodes transiting your ninth house and your third house. So you have the North Node in your ninth house of higher education, long distance travel, philosophy, or belief systems. I've actually seen a lot with people having the North Node transiting the ninth house is going back to school or taking a course or deciding to, travel. Remember, this is an 18-month story playing out. So if you watch the first portion of this forecast where I talked about kind of the first major activation we have of this Pisces energy, which is like the end of January, beginning of February, that's when I think we really start to get some insight into the themes and topics that we will be shifting and changing over the next 18 months. And every time we have an eclipse or an activation of this energy, there's more to the story coming in. There's more changes, new energy coming in to kind of shift and change these areas of life. Now, with the South Node in the third house, the South Node represents something you are moving away from. You're releasing, letting go, kind of finished with karmically. And the third house represents your community, neighbors, neighborhood, your vehicle, um, siblings, cousins, neighbors, kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis, kind of out in your within your community, in your neighborhood. The third house also rules your mind and your mindset, communication. And so there's something shifting and changing in these areas of life as well. Maybe your mindset around something can be shifting, especially too with the North Node being in the ninth house of belief systems and the South Node being in the third house of your mind. There can definitely be a lot going on where your beliefs are changing, your mindset around certain things are changing. And so I actually like the nodes kind of in the third and ninth. I know when I had the nodes transiting my third and ninth with the North Node in the ninth, that's when I took my astrology course and kind of completely changed, my direction in life. And even to like communicating and how I would communicate changed as well. So, yeah, all in all, it's a really good energy. Just remember, it is an 18-month story, so we do kind of want to pay attention to all the significant activations. Leo, you have the nodes transiting your eighth house and your second house, your money houses. So the North Node is going to be transiting your eighth house of your partner's finances, also taxes, inheritance. The eighth house can also be very psychological. It's all your investments. With your partner and also your partner's finances, but what you guys accumulate together as well financially. And again, it's a very psychological house too. It can rule like psychological healing and transformation. It rules the occult, it rules secrets. Um, so there's quite a lot packed here with the North Node in the eighth. What I would kind of be careful of is getting into too much debt with the North Node in the eighth house. And remember that North Node represents something new. It's a new direction that you're moving into. With the South Node in your second house of your money, your finances, how you make money, your values. There's something that you're kind of releasing and letting go of and moving away from in this area of life. So maybe, one example of that could be where maybe you were single and you just kind of had your money. Now you're moving in with your partner and you guys are putting your money together. That could definitely be, a way that this can express itself. But also, too, that second house rules values, your personal values, and what you need to feel secure. So there's something changing in this area. And just remember that this is an 18-month story playing out. So over the next 18 months, every time we have an eclipse or a major activation in these areas of your chart, there's new energy coming in. There's more energy and more changes to the story that will be playing out over the next 18 months. Virgo, you have the North Node transiting your seventh house and the South Node transiting your first house. So you are about to go through a lot of changes when it has to do with you and your relationships because this seventh house rules all of your one-on-one partnerships. So business partnerships, your marriage partner, all of those close personal relationships is in the seventh. And with the North Node transiting the seventh house, the North Node representing something new, it's a new faded direction. It can indicate you having a lot of new relationships or new people come into your life that change you in some way. And having the South Node in the first house, which the first house represents you, the self, your character, your personality, your appearance, your perception of the world and kind of how the world views you is all in the first house. There's something changing about that. There's something you're moving away from. And to be honest, a lot I think we're going to feel kind of collectively, but especially with us Virgo risings, is realizing and letting go of the need to control and learning to trust others. Like sometimes we tend to always want to control the outcome or, control the situation in some way. And I think that over the next 18 months, there's going to be situations, kind of showing up for us where we're going to have to let go of that control and learn to trust. And just remember that it is an 18-month story playing out. So every time we get an eclipse, in either Pisces or Virgo, or we have some type of significant activation in these areas, that's new energy, new changes coming in to kind of shift the direction that you will be moving in. And to play a part in the story, the 18-month story that will be playing out. So if you didn't watch the first portion of this video, I highly recommend it because I go through some charts and touch on some of the major activations taking place, just to give you an idea. But the first kind of activation I feel like we get is the end of January, beginning of February in Pisces. And that's when you can really get some insight into some of the changes that are going to be taking place or some of the themes and topics you will be navigating over the next 18 months. But all in all, this is kind of exciting. I'm also Virgo rising, so I'm looking forward to this. And with the South Node in the first house, we are going to have to learn to kind of change how we relate to people, how we connect to people. Libra, you have the nodes transiting your sixth house and your 12th house. You have the North Node in your sixth house of um, your health, your nutrition, your daily routine, your work habits, also pets, and your 12th house of self-undoing, self-sabotaging, escapism, also things in places that are hidden, like hospitals, asylums, retreat centers. The 12th house also rules karma and spirituality, past lives. And so there's definitely a lot of changes taking place in these areas of life where maybe you're starting some new health habits or some new routine in some way and releasing some of your self-undoing behaviors or self-sabotaging tendencies or even escapism, because escapism can be in that 12th house. And just with, Virgo Pisces energy, kind of generally speaking, one thing we're all going to have to navigate in our own way is letting go of the need to control. That's that Virgo energy and learning to trust the universe. And we're literally all going to have to go through that in our own way, and it's showing up in our life differently. Um, but that's where I feel like for you, kind of learning to trust and living your life daily more on that path or with it, more on a path that is in alignment, I think is kind of the, excuse me, kind of the best way you're going to navigate these energies, kind of staying away from the escapism tendencies, staying away from, self-undoing habits or patterns and shifting your daily routine in some way so that you can do so. Scorpio, you have the nodes transiting your fifth and 11th house. So you have the North Node in the fifth house and the South Node in the 11th house. So that means these areas of life are going to be going through massive karmic changes. So the North Node represents a new direction, something new, something unknown, and being in the fifth house, where the fifth house rules children, creativity, your hobbies, what you're interested in, what you find pleasure in doing, romantic connections and romance, creative projects. That's all in the fifth house. You're going to be moving into a new direction with that. So there could be like a new karmic partner, showing up, romantic connection. I mean, a new karmic romantic connection, showing up in this area. or possibly children. Changes with children or having children can definitely be a thing with the North Node transiting the fifth house. And then with the South Node represents something we're letting go of or releasing or moving away from. And it's in the 11th house of friends and friendships, social groups, online connections, social media, networking. All of the groups that you are kind of connected to is in that 11th house, as well as your hopes and your dreams. And so there is something that you are moving away from in this area of life, whether you're letting go of some friends or also too having the South Node transiting the 11th could bring some friends back from the past because that South Node represents the past as well, whether it's from childhood or someone you feel like you've known from like another lifetime. That could definitely be a thing. But there's a lot of changes going on in these areas of life. And just remember that this is an 18-month story playing out. So every time we have an eclipse or a major activation in these areas of life, there's more energy and situations and experiences coming in to kind of play out that story, to change the story. So if you didn't watch the first portion of this video, make sure you do so because I do go over a few charts. And the first kind of major activation we have in Pisces is the end of January, beginning of February. And that's going to be here in your fifth house. So you definitely want to pay attention to what is showing up for you because I think that's where we get the first little bit of insight to show us kind of, what the story is going to be for each of us individually. Sagittarius, you have the nodes transiting your fourth house and your 10th house. So you have the North Node transiting your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. And the North Node represents a new fated direction. So this could be purchasing a new home. This could be welcoming a new family member. There's definitely something new showing up around home, family, property. Also, the fourth house also rules your private life and what you kind of do behind the scenes. So there's something new kind of showing up there, a new journey or direction. Now, the South Node is transiting your 10th house of career and public reputation. So there could be something you're kind of letting go. I mean, if you have, and this could just be one way that this could show up, but if you have, let's say you have a baby, you would be at home a lot more, not so much at work, over the next year or so. And that literally could be one way that this could show up. But either way, the South Node represents something you're letting go of, you're moving away from. So there could be a change in your career, a change in the position at your career. There's something changing about your public life, your public image, and your career, and something you're kind of moving into in a new direction in your private life and around home and family. And remember that this is an 18-month story playing out. So every time we have an eclipse or some major activation in these signs in this area of life, there's new energy and experiences coming in for the story that is playing out over the next 18 months. Capricorn, you have the nodes transiting your third house and your ninth house. So you have the North Node in your third house of communication, your community, your neighborhood, neighbors, siblings, cousins, vehicles, your mindset, how you think and your thought processing. And having the North Node transiting the third house, there's a new direction you're taking with that. Whether there's a shift in your mindset, and also too, like the South Node in the ninth house and the ninth house ruling belief systems, there could be a lot changing around your belief systems and your mindset around that, like maybe letting go of some belief systems or beliefs that you've had in the past that are no longer in alignment, which is shifting your mindset. That's definitely one way this could play out. But the ninth house rules higher education, higher knowledge, long distance travel, philosophy, um, and then yeah, your belief systems, foreign cultures. And so having that South Node there, which the South Node represents something you're letting go of or releasing or moving away from, there is a lot of changes in this area of life. Maybe um I mean the ninth house can also rule teaching too. So maybe if you usually travel a lot, you're not really going to travel a lot over the next 18 months. I would say, to be honest, I see a lot with the nodes transiting the third and ninth house is either something that has to do with going back to school or taking a course or teaching, and also like a lot around beliefs and religious beliefs and things changing in that area. I tend to see a lot with the nodes when the nodes are transiting in the ninth. And then again, that third house can rule like your mindset. And so there's something new that you're bringing in, whether it's a new mindset around something or the way you communicate, maybe the way you connect with people, like your siblings, cousins in your community, like those are all themes and topics that are under that third house. So just remember that this is an 18-month story playing out, and every time we have a major activation in these areas or an eclipse, that's new energy coming in for the story that is playing out over the next 18 months. Aquarius, you have the nodes transiting your second house and your eighth house. The North Node is transiting your second house of money, finances, material possessions, your personal values. And the South Node is transiting your eighth house of your partner's finances, your investments, the investments that you have with your partner. It's mutual funds. It's also too can rule taxes and inheritance. It can also rule psychological healing and transformation. So there's quite a lot of changes going on with your money over the next 18 months. The North Node represents something new and a new direction you're moving into, and the South Node represents something you're releasing or letting go or moving away from. So I mean, this can play out in many different ways, but just an example could be maybe, having more of your own personal money, moving away from your partner's money. And also, too, this could be, releasing a lot of debt that you guys have together, too. This can also be shifting and changing because it's like a very psychological house. So it can be it's kind of, wouldn't say mental, but like it could be where you're letting go of maybe um, old patterns that you've once had, especially when it has to do with like your personal values, because your values are in that second house. Also, to the eighth house rules secrets and the occult. So just remember that this is an 18-month story playing out, and every time we have a major activation in these areas of life, whether it be an eclipse or, some type of other significant conjunction, there's more energy to the story that will be playing out over the next 18 months. So, if you watch the first portion of this forecast, where I got into some of the charts, the first kind of major activation we have is at the end of January, beginning of February in Pisces, the late degrees of Pisces. And this is where I believe we will see the first kind of insight to the themes and topics we'll be navigating over the next 18 months in our own personal lives. And so for you, you definitely want to watch for what's going on with your money, with your investments, with your partner's money, um, and things of that nature, all your material possessions and stuff. Because, those are the themes and topics that are really up for review and going through massive changes. Pisces, you have the nodes transiting your first and your seventh house. So you have the North Node transiting your first house of you, the self. That this is all about you, your character, your personality, your physical body, how you view, your perception on the world and how others view you. So you're really going through a lot of changes over the next 18 months. You will be completely shifting and changing who you are and how you relate to other people, having the South Node in the seventh house, and the South Node rules, the North Node is represents something new. It's a new fated direction that you're moving into, and the South Node represents the past or where you are releasing and letting go of something. And so the seventh house rules all of your close personal connections, your marriage partner, your relationship partner, your business partner, all of those really close one-on-one connections. So having the South Node transiting the seventh house can really mean a lot. I mean, it can mean that you are releasing and letting go of people that are no longer in alignment. It can also bring back relationships from the past that still are not completely karmically finished. And it can it definitely changes how you relate to those one-on-one connections. So you're about to go through a lot of massive changes. And if you watch the first portion of this video, when I got into some of the charts, I talked about kind of the first major activation we have in Pisces with that North Node is like the end of January, beginning of February. And I feel like that's kind of the first insight we will see to show us what the themes and topics will be for us individually, over the next 18 months. So you definitely want to pay attention to, coming into February, what's showing up for you around your own personal direction in life and your direction with your partner or within relationships. Again, that South Node can bring relationships or people back from the past, but it can also indicate a needing to release and let go of people that are no longer in alignment.